After receiving backlash, proponents of the Maharlika Wealth Fund bill decided to amend the measure. Marikina Representative Stella Kimbo said the government service insurance system and social security system will be removed as fund sources.
Sana, because nakita natin, yun ang kagandahan nung naging consultation, nakita talaga natin yung saan talaga yung concern, saan galing yung takot, and importante yung boses ng tao. Importante na pakinggan and at the same time tugunan.
Instead of pension funds, the proposed Maharlika Wealth Fund will tap profits from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Kimbo said the BSP has already committed to this after they allayed some of the reservations of BSP Governor Felipe Medalla.
Ang isang naging concern is baka lumiit ang reserves niya. So, of course, ang reserves ay kailangan yon para depensahan ng ating piso. Pero nung na-reassure siya na hindi naman natin kukunin ang reserves, but rather kukunin natin yung profits.
Still, Gabriela Representative Arlene Brosas raised concerns over the management of the MWF.
Kahit tanggalin pa ang GSIS at SSS sa pagkukuhanan ng pondo, maaari pa rin maging balon ng korupsyon ang Maharlika Fund. Lalo talamak ang korupsyon sa gobyerno at walang hinahain na safeguards para siguraduhin gagamitin ito sa tama, yung pondong ito.
Meanwhile, Northern Samar Solon Paul Daza lauded the amendment but appealed to his fellow lawmakers not to rush the passage of the bill. For Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel, changes in the MWF bill only proves that it was not well thought of. House Majority Leader Manix Dalipe said the MWF bill could be approved on second reading at the lower chamber before Christmas break. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
To give us his insights on the changes in the controversial MWF bill, we have with us political economist and Foundation for Economic Freedom President Calixto Chikiamco. He joins us now live via Zoom. Sir, good evening and welcome to the big story.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
I'll toss the first question. Does the removal of the SSS and GSIS remove all red flags from this Maharlika Wealth Fund, or are there still any red flags remaining in your opinion?
Well, first of all, it's a good first step in reevaluating the merits of the bill. So at least we have to give credit to the legislators for recognizing that it's politically toxic to be messing with pension funds. I've always said this before, that even former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. did not interfere or mess with the SSS. So I'm glad that this has been done, but there are still many problematic provisions in the current bill. One of them is that using BSP profits, because this would be an amendment to the charter of the central bank, because the profits of the central bank are supposed to be reinvested to increase the capitalization of the central bank to 200 billion. So effectively, they'll be amending the BSP charter. It's not so obvious from the bill that they're going to do this. Thirdly, of course, if they're going to use DBP and land bank funds, this might be adding another layer to the bureaucracy. That's by having another institution to be investing these funds. So I think they need to reevaluate further the bill.
All right. So, but sir, aside from GSIS and SSS, there are also ideas to drop the annual contribution in the national from the national budget. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I think that's correct because right now the national budget is even insufficient to pay for all the requirements, expenditures of the national government, and for even paying, the healthcare workers' allowances. So I think it was the correct move to drop the contribution of the national government to the fund.
Some pundits, sir, are saying that this renders the idea of the Maharlika Wealth Fund basically dead in the water. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Well, my suggestion is that they, you know, the Maharlika Wealth Fund is the wrong instrument for what they want to do. You know, a sovereign wealth fund is aims for diversification and financial returns. But what they're talking about is using this as a development tool, and therefore it's the wrong institution. I think what they should do instead is to revive the National Development Corporation, recapitalize it, inject funds from, let's say, privatizing PAGCOR or the Muntinlupa Bilibid property, and inject it into that National Development Corporation so they can freely use it to invest in infrastructure projects by the national grid, etc. So that's my suggestion. It's not consistent with the principles and ideas of a sovereign wealth fund.
Okay, so I understand, sir, that you are not in favor to push through with the Maharlika funds. But if, in any case, this will push through, who do you think should manage the funds? There are suggestions from GSIS that the president must be included in the advisory council, but just the advisory committee. But aside from establishing the advisory committee, what else should the Congress include in the provisions to make sure that there will be transparency?
Well, first of all, I think they should remove the provision that only the board of directors can approve access to the records. If they're really aiming for full transparency, they should remove this. And I think Congressman Salceda has opened himself to this suggestion. No? So the other thing that I think they should remove is the exemption from the contracts are exempted from review by the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel. So these are some of the things that they should institute as safeguards if ever they will push through with it. But as I said, they should rethink the whole concept, and maybe instead of a sovereign wealth fund, they should create a development finance institution.
Right. Going back to what you said earlier about what this fund is supposed to fund, right? So it's infrastructure projects and such. We do have existing tools apart from the NDC, which you already mentioned, like private-public partnerships and such. But I want to get also your thoughts, sir, on how exactly the BSP's independence could be impacted if, for example, they are able to mandate and change the laws for the BSP to be able to share its profits with this fund?
Well, for one thing, we have to determine first how much exactly are the profits of the BSP, because revaluation of foreign exchange reserves does not constitute profits. So that's the first thing that has to be undertaken, no? So at the same time, of course, there's the constitutional question whether this violates the constitutional independence of the central bank. So I'm sure if this thing pushes through, this will be brought before the Supreme Court.
All right, thank you for your time, political economist Calixto Chikiamco. After the break, higher power rates loom after San Miguel Global Power suspended its supply arrangement with Meralco. We will be discussing this with Pete Ilagan of the National Association of Electricity Consumers for Reforms. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
there are various estimates of how much exactly Qatar has spent in order to prepare for this event. The stadiums are really just a small fraction.
While costs for the 2022 World Cup are reportedly the highest ever for a sporting competition, it's part of an unsettling trend for what are known as mega events.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. The Energy Regulatory Commission, or ERC, expects power rates to go up after the impasse in the power supply deal between San Miguel Corporation and Meralco. Here's the report.
Meralco customers could likely see an increase in their power bill soon. The power distributor still sorting out where to get the 670 megawatts it lost after San Miguel's power unit ended their supply agreement. But there may still be hope. Energy Regulatory Commission Chairperson Mona Lisa de Malanta told The Big Story that the power supply deal between Meralco and South Premier Power Corporation was just put on hold.
We received the official notice from Meralco on this matter, and it appears from their notice that what SPPC had communicated to them was a suspension, not a termination of the power supply agreement.
Meralco is now looking to pursue negotiations with other power suppliers. But in the meantime, the power distributor is sourcing its lost supply from the wholesale electricity spot market. The downside is, Meralco may have to source supply from WESM at higher rates by as much as 4 to 5 pesos per kilowatt hour.
We still need to see the other factors that will come into play. So to assume that we will already redound to higher prices, well, that's in terms of the bills of customer, well, that's a possibility, but still remains to be seen. We are still negotiating with other generation companies to secure the 670 megawatt supply in order to shield our customers against the potentially higher and volatile WESM prices.
As for the computation of the ERC, regular households consuming 200 kilowatt hours could likely see a 60 to 80 peso increase in their power bills.
We'll get to about an increase of 30 to 40 centavos per kilowatt hour. So that's about, for a consumer that's average consuming volume of 200 kilowatts, that's about 60, 80 pesos additional for the total power bill.
For its part, the ERC has given assurance that it will first vet any rate hike that will be passed on to consumers. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
One expert believes that a lot of red flags still remain even after lawmakers removed state insurers as funding sources for the envisioned Maharlika Wealth Fund. Speaking to Business World Live, Action for Economic Reform's co-founder Filomeno Santa Ana III said that conditions are not ripe for the Philippines to set up a sovereign wealth fund. Santa Ana explained that good governance and oversight remains an issue in the country.
Even if we remove SSS, GSIS, and similar institutions from participation in the so-called fund and corporation, the problem of what really that fund is not addressed. In that bill, there are too many red flags, very controversial provisions, which are inconsistent with good institutions, good governance, prudential care, good oversight regulations.
Aside from all these, Santa Ana noted that the Philippines does not have enough foreign exchange reserves to cushion potential losses. He also believes that the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas should be independent from the State Investment Fund. BSP Governor Felipe Medalla had earlier expressed his reservations on the fund.
What I know is that the charter of the Bangko Sentral states that the BSP must be independent. Now, I'm not saying that automatically, because of this bill, or when passed to law, would make the Bangko central beholden to the national government. But again, if you look at the design of the bill, it has many controversial provisions. So it's better to keep out the Bangko Sentral from this fund.
Circling back to the issue about electricity, we have on the line Mr. Pete Ilagan. He is the president of the National Association of Electricity Consumers for Reforms, or NASICOR. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the big story, sir. Nasabi na po
thank you.
Hello, sir. Yes, nasabi
Hello,
na po ng ERC na posibleng ang tumaas ng 60 to 80 pesos ang isang regular household na kumukonsumo ng 200 megawatts or kilowatts pala ng kuryente per month. Sa inyong calculation, tama ba to?
Well, hindi pa ho natin masasabi yan sapagkat wala pa naman nailathala o naipayag na may kapalit na supplier, yung San Miguel at saka South Premier. Hindi wala pa namang naahayag kung meron ng bagong supplier at kung magkano ang presyo ng bagong supplier sa Meralco na papalit sa San Miguel at saka sa South Premier.
Pero sir, kung halimbawa magpalit nga ng supplier itong Meralco, gaano po kalaki yung magiging epekto nito?
Depende po sa presyo. Depende sa presyo na iaalay. Sa ngayon po kasi, ang presyo po ng San Miguel at saka ng South Premier ay 4 na piso at 5 sentimo lamang. Kaya na sinasabi natin kung noong Disyembre, kapag ka hindi in-accommodate ng ERC yung proposed hike adjustment, yung proposed rate adjustment from 4 pesos, aakyat ito ng 5 pesos, dapat matapatan ito yung matapatan ng sino mang supplier na papalit upang mapanatili natin yung least cost supply provision ng batas. Kaya hindi natin malalaman kung magkano itataas yan kung hindi sasabihin ng ERC kung magkano yung presyo ng bagong supplier na papalit sa San Miguel at saka sa South Premier.
Yung isang I think nakakatakot dito, no, Sir Pete, yung president. Kagabi nga kausap namin si ERC Chairperson Mona Lisa Di Malanta. Tinanong ko po siya kung may president ba na nagyaring ganito na nagkaroon ng TRO sa isang power supply agreement. Ang sabi niya po, sa pagkakaalam niya ay wala. For me, no, medyo scary kasi na may ganitong president na magyayari. Ano po yung thoughts niyo on this?
Totoo yan. Medyo bagong-bago yan sapagkat ngayon din lamang tayo nagkaroon ng isang kontrata na tinatawag na financial contract o kaya fixed rate siya. Hindi parehas ng lahat ng mga nauna, yung po ay merong provision na automatic adjustment. Kaya buwan-buwan, kahit walang public hearing, walang due process, ay bigla na lamang tumataas ang presyo ng kuryente. Halimbawa ngayon sa mga probinsya, ang generation rate na pinag-uusapan ay nasa 12 piso na generation rate lamang yan. Dito sa atin ngayon sa Meralco, 6 pesos and 99 centavos ang ating generation rate. Kaya ang pinag-uusapan natin ngayon ay yung proposed rate adjustment ng aplikante na lalampas ng 5 piso pero mas mababa sa 6 na piso. So, dahil nga sa pagtanggi ng ERC, sabi nga ng Meralco, mapipilitan silang kumuha sa ibang supplier, kaya lang ay hindi masisiguro na matatapatan nila yung presyo na hinihingi ng aplikante. Kaya hindi pa tayo nakasiguro na yung proposed price increase, ang pinag-usapan natin na about 540 or 550 pesos per kilowatt hour. Hindi natin alam kung yan ang magiging kapalit na supplier. At dapat i-quantify na ng Energy Regulatory Commission kung magkano ang itataas nito dito sa presyo natin ngayon na 699 kung paano tataas. Ang sinasabi siguro nila na pagtaas ng presyo ng kuryente dito sa pag-atras, pag-withdraw ng San Miguel at saka SPPC ay mapipilitan daw bumili ang Meralco sa wholesale electricity spot market na alam nating mataas ang presyo ng kuryente. So kung bibili man ng Meralco sa WSM, yan ay bunga ng pag-deny ng commission doon sa motion for the proposed rate adjustment ng aplikante. Kaya bago tayo mabahala, dapat i-quantify muna ng Energy Regulatory Commission kung magkano ang presyong pinag-uusapan na sinasabing lang makakapagdagdag ng 80 centimos per kilowatt hour. Basta alam natin po, ang ating natatanggap ngayon na generation rate, sinisingil po tayo ng Meralco ng 6 pesos and 99 centavos for our November bill. Yan po ang ating rate ngayon.
All right, thank you for your time and insights, Mr. Pete Ilagan, President of NASICOR. Right after the break, Pinay powerhouse Hidilyn Diaz dominates the IWF World Weightlifting Championships after sweeping 3 gold medals in the 55-kilogram event. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
The world is drowning in debt. Governments, companies, and households' debt increased about $80 trillion over the past 10 years, bringing the total amount owed to $290 trillion. And that's about to get dangerously expensive as borrowers are facing relentless increases in interest rates as central banks tighten policy to cool inflation. Investors are scanning the planet for weak links. As history shows, debt piles often lead to full-fledged crisis. That's what happened in Japanese corporations in the 1990s and with U.S. households in the decade following. But risks aren't spread evenly because not all debt is the same. Most U.S. households are protected from Fed hikes because they borrowed on fixed-rate mortgages, whereas that's not the case in other countries. South Korea, Australia, and Canada are among the most vulnerable. Their adjustable rate loans are common, and they're already seeing pretty crazy monthly bills. Same thing for governments, especially for developing economies that are borrowing in dollars. But even for countries borrowing in their own currency, they are also at risk, such as what we saw happen in Britain recently. The extent of the damage likely depends on how high central banks are going to keep rising interest rates. For now, it looks like they're going to keep going, while the impact of what they've done is yet to fully hit. The world is drowning in debt. Governments, companies, and households' debt increased about $80 trillion over the past 10 years, bringing the total amount owed to $290 trillion. And that's about to get dangerously expensive as borrowers are facing relentless increases in interest rates as central banks tighten policy to cool inflation. Investors are scanning the planet for weak links. As history shows, debt piles often lead to full-fledged crisis. That's what happened in Japanese corporations in the 1990s and with U.S. households in the decade following. But risks aren't spread evenly because not all debt is the same. Most U.S. households are protected from Fed hikes because they borrowed on fixed-rate mortgages, whereas that's not the case in other countries. South Korea, Australia, and Canada are among the most vulnerable. Their adjustable rate.
You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. For the big story in sports, the UP Fighting Maroons and the Ateneo Blue Eagles set up Battle of Katipunan Part 3 in the UAAP Men's Basketball Tournament, while weightlifting champion Hidilyn Diaz captured the world title in Colombia. Gretchen Ho with the story.
World champion, Olympic gold medalist Hidilyn Diaz adds another title in her long list of accolades today as she dominated the 55-kilogram division in Bogota, Colombia. The Pinay weightlifting champion bagged 3 golds for the snatch, clean and jerk, and the total. Diaz captured the gold in the snatch after clearing 93 kilograms. She followed that up with another gold in the clean and jerk with 114. That put her total to 207 kilograms, securing her 3rd gold for the event. This means that the 31-year-old Hidilyn finally completed her collection of championships From the SEA Games to the Asian Games to the Olympics and now to a World Championship title. Diaz last participated in the World Championships last 2019 where she got the bronze. Definitely a bright start for Hidilyn as she kicked off her bid for the Paris 2024 Olympics. Over in the UAAP, the defending champions UP Fighting Maroons defeated the NU Bulldogs 69-61 to return to the UAAP finals.
And the UP Fighting Maroons defeat the NU Bulldogs, and they will return to the UAAP finals to defend their UAAP crown.
Season MVP frontrunner Malik Diouf led the Maroons with 17 points, 21 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 2 assists. JD Kagulangan played hero for UP once more as he contributed 8 points, 6 assists, and 3 steals, which included a clutch 3 late in the game.
Kagulangan for 3. Yes, sir! Edge, the drop pass to him.
Meanwhile, the Ateneo Blue Eagles are also back in the finals for the 6th time after dominating the Adamson Falcons 81-60. It was all business for the Katipunan squad, who led as big as 30 points. Sharpshooter Chris Kuhn powered Ateneo with 15 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds. And this marks the 3rd time the Fighting Maroons will be facing the Ateneo Blue Eagles for the UAAP Men's Basketball Finals in 4 seasons. The UAAP Men's Basketball Finals UP versus Ateneo Game 1 begins on December 11, 6 p.m. And you can catch the games on One Sports, One Sport Plus, and Smart Giga Play app. Gretchen Ho, We Are One News.
It's not just the fans, but also the members of Eraserheads who are excited for their upcoming reunion concert dubbed Huling El Bimbo. MJ Marfori with the details.
Just 2 weeks away, all is set for legendary Pinoy rock band Eraserheads and their onstage reunion, which took 3 years in the making. The veteran concert producer, WEU President Francis Lumen, led the negotiations. The concert will feature all 4 original members of the band: Eli Buendia, Buddy Zabala, Raymond Marasigan, and Marcos Adoro. They shared that they are excited to perform again for their fans. Eli, in fact, was sentimental when asked what Ehad songs reflects his life right now.
Now, siguro, Huling El Bimbo resonates definitely. We chose that title because well, it was the last song in one of our most successful albums.
According to drummer Raymond Marasigan, the band is happy that different generations can relate to their songs.
Parang last week bumibili ako ng soft drink sa 7-Eleven ng alas 2 ng madaling araw. Yung katabi nun may video okay. Tapos kumakanta sila ng pare ko. Tapos pumasok ako, nakikanta ako ng pare ko. Tapos nagkantaan kami ng pare ko. Tapos umalis na ako ng walang picturean.
That is so cool.
Diba? Ang cool nun.
Oo, sobra.
And that song, I've heard that song. Ellie played it in his dorm room in 1990. Wow. And what year is it now? And it still has the same effect on people.
The group, however, admitted that preparations for the concert has been a challenge.
Malaki yung venue, malaki yung stage, madami yung audience. The challenge for us is how to make it feel personal, how to make it feel more intimate.
The Eraserheads are considered the Beatles of the Philippines. That's why the reunion concert is expected to draw in around 50,000 fans to the venue. And if this is really the Huling El Bimbo of the Eraserheads, it's certainly a can't miss. The concert is happening on December 22 at the SMDC Festival Grounds in Parañaque City. For News 5, MJ Marfori, We Are One News.
And that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. I'm Marisol Haridi.
The big story is also available via Signal Play. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I am Sean Yao. Stay safe, Philippines, and happy holidays. We are now down to our last 17 days before Christmas.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.